When we finally empower ourselves enough to get out of a toxic relationship, it is so easy to get caught in the cycle of bitterness, resentment, hatred, hatred, and even guilt and shame, continuously blaming ourselves for why we stayed in that relationship or why we even got into it in the first place, why we overlook red flags and went ahead stepping into this relationship that has now caused us so much hurt. Now, I understand that, again, when you're first stepping out of that toxic space, this is the normal order of business. You're going to find yourself feeling a sense of blame, feeling a sense of wanting justice, wanting that person to suffer as you suffered. And I get this. I understand it. And like I said, this is a natural part of the healing process. However, in order for us to truly heal, to truly transcend, and never find ourselves back in that very same place, we have to heal. We have to transcend the place that we once were and to become the person that we were always meant to be. We have to shift our conscious and unconscious mindsets in order for us to live the life that we truly desire and to move forward and to have healthier and healthier relationships moving forward. Because at the end of the day, what is the point of healing if we're not going to find ourselves in healthy relationships on the other side? Now, that being said, I just really wanted to do a quick run over, and this is a very surface level of why do we get into toxic relationships in the first place. Now, in every case, whether it's unconscious or conscious, whether it's in the subconscious mind or we're seeing it happen in real time, we get ourselves into relationships based on what we believe about ourselves. There is no person who has ever had any relationship that had nothing to do with what they believed they deserved out of life itself. Not just out of relationships, but deserving out of life. And most of us were raised with this programming, with the conditioning that we are not deserving, we are not worthy of love unless we do certain things or unless we act certain ways, or some of us just simply believe that we're just not deserving of love. And so when that is the mindset, when that is the belief system in essence, then that's what we're going to manifest and attract into our lives. There's no other way around it. This is universal law. Now, that means that we are then able to make decisions moving forward to start changing and shifting that mentality. However, when we're first starting out, when we're first not very conscious of the way in which the world works or the world within us works, we get ourselves caught up in these situations, in these relationships that are destructive, that are toxic, that in most cases are against our very own good. And yet it seems as if we just can't not get into them. It seems as if there's a pattern where we continue to repeat the same mistakes over and over. And as I said, our belief system is always attached to the relationships that we get into. So if I have a belief that I'm not deserving of respect, then I'm going to get into a disrespectful relationship. And again, it doesn't have to be conscious. It could be a subconscious belief system that's been playing out in different ways. Now, the second element of why we get into these relationships is due to the energy that we hold. That's meaning what type of emotional space am I most consistently in most of the time? What kind of thoughts and emotions am I entertaining most of the time? Example, if I'm an individual who lives a majority of my life in a fearful state, if I entertain or engage in fearful thoughts which create fearful emotions, I will find myself attracting to myself those situations, circumstances, people, places, and things that represent or are at the same vibrational level as my fears, which means in relationships, I will attract to me the very things that I fear. Now, some people trivialize this, they, belittle this and say, oh, well, what if I say like, I fear, six-pack abs, or I fear a big booty, or whatever it is. Does that mean I'm attracted? No, that's not what I'm talking about. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is when we have the energy of fear, when we're in a closed off space where our energy is always in a place where we are paranoid, we're looking out for worst case situations, etc. And again, this might just seem normal. You might not even fully recognize that you live at a fear consciousness because it seems so normal to you, because it's all you've known since you were an infant, a child, an adolescent. And so we have to first become aware of why is it that we get ourselves into these situations? What is it exactly that gets me not only into the relationship, but perpetuating that relationship? Because once you realize and discover you're in a toxic relationship, the next question is, why am I not leaving? Like, why don't I leave immediately? And again, once we start looking at the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, then we can start highlighting the truth of why we are in these relationships in the first place. So that being said, again, real surface level, but those two are absolutely important. And if you just stuck to those two, you would figure out quickly why it is that you continue to engage and entertain these relationships. Now, the second part and the most important part after that self-awareness, well, it's equally as important, but if you don't do this step, then you will remain stuck and now just aware of what's going on. And I believe that's almost worse. Like, you rather have your head in the sand, not know what's going on, than know what's going on and do nothing about it, right? So that being said, jumping into the actual healing process. Now, some of these ideas and concepts are going to be things you've heard a million times over, yet I'm going to show them and demonstrate them in a way where you're finally going to accept them and move on them, take action within them, and see why it is necessary for you to do so and why it is advantageous. Because at the end of the day, we don't do things unless there is a benefit for us, unless that pleasure is greater than the pleasure we're experiencing now, or that pleasure is greater than the comfort that we're experiencing in this very moment. There has to be a greater reward on the other side. How energy works is you can either manifest your very fear or you can manifest your greatest and deepest desires. So we want to start off with the idea, the concept, and the truth of forgiveness. Now, the word forgiveness itself actually means letting go completely. That is the old-time definition or the actual meaning of the word. It is basically forgiving, like giving something forth, which is removing yourself, which is parting from a thing. And so most of us, when we think of forgiveness, we think about, letting a person back in and allowing them to continue the same abusive behavior. That's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not letting people back in. However, forgiveness is also not whatever, I block that person on any device, but you're still keeping resentment and hatred within your heart. That is not forgiveness either. Now, forgiveness can show up in multiple ways, like externally. And in most ways, in most cases, especially in toxic relationships, yes, there is a factor of removing yourself from the individual. However, if you don't remove the person psychologically and emotionally, then you will continue to suffer. It doesn't matter how far that person goes. They could move to a completely different continent. They could move to a different planet, and you'll still have them in your heart and you'll still have them in your mind. And as long as they live in those two places, they are still with you. And the same hurt that you experienced then, you're going to experience now. So, again, step one of forgiveness is acceptance of what happened. You have to completely and absolutely accept. And yes, you have to be honest and truthful about how these things made you feel, how these things hurt you. But we're not going to stay in that space. We have to transcend that place of acceptance, of validating ourselves, to then making the decision of actually letting it go because it is for our greatest good. To forgive somebody has nothing to do with them. Like, you've heard this a million times, but it's really going to settle in today. You don't forgive for anybody but yourself because you're the only one who's suffering from that non-forgiveness. Now, most of us have this wacky idea, probably from religion or from society in some way, that says, when I hold on to this person, I'm getting revenge on them. Like, me wishing the worst on you is gonna one day lead to you feeling the pain that I felt. When in reality, you're just repeating that same pain to yourself over and over again. That's the only thing that's taking place. Nobody is cursed in that situation besides yourself. I promise you that. Therefore, we have to make the decision that we are willing to let go of the thing. And sometimes it seems impossible, but everything seems impossible until you make the decision to do it, and then the door will open for you. So once you decide that you're going to let go, then number 3 is building the habit of forgiveness. Now, this is one that you probably have never heard before. Forgiveness is a habit. And actually, biblically, this ain't to get religious, but in scripture, there is a specific verse where Jesus is asked by his disciples, how many times do we forgive? And I believe he says 77 times 7. And they say, oh, we're supposed to give, some people think, oh, I forgive 144 times or whatever that equals to. When in reality, what he was saying is forgive as many times as necessary. Because each time you forgive, it's letting go of more and more of that energy. It's allowing your natural energy to flow through you as opposed to holding that energy, which then creates dis-ease in your body, which then manifests in most cases into a physical dis-ease. right? I don't even want to go down that road, but if you're wondering where sickness and ailments come from, it's from some sort of energy blockage within our own system. It starts in the unseen and manifests in the seen. So therefore, when we finally decide to forgive, we're now building the habit of forgiveness, which means instead of ruminating on what that person did, we decide in that moment, okay, I'm going to let it go. In that very moment, whatever it takes for you mentally, once you say, I'm letting that go, and your focus goes elsewhere, not ignoring your feelings, but saying, I'm willing to let this go. Let the emotion run through you and then let it go. I promise it's that simple. Like a child knows how to forgive. They just do it more naturally because they haven't been conditioned into holding on to resentment yet. They haven't been fully conditioned into holding on to things for the rest of their lives and hating people for it. So when we take that same approach of I'm feeling this feeling, and this is just a rehearsed feeling or rehearsed thought, right? About hating that person or wishing the worst on them or thinking about that situation. I let it go in the moment and I actually I gain right there. In that moment, there is a win. It's just like a meditation. Each time you just let a thought go in that meditation, it's a win. You're literally reinforcing a new habit within yourself. Each day that you choose to go to the gym, regardless of how little you may do that day, each time you go, you're creating a new habit, a reinforcement that I am a type of person who works out. And your subconscious mind is going to then start to alter, right? Now, there are practices of meditation, etc., that literally get you integrated with your emotional state at a heightened level. And it literally changes and shifts your emotional set point or your vibrational state. So if you're a person who lived under so much fear and you begin to meditate, you're going to start to get to a default of peace. It's not going to happen overnight, but for some, it happens quite fast as long as you dedicate yourself to it. And it's so funny because we'll dedicate ourselves to getting that college degree, to getting that job, to getting that promotion, getting this, that, and a third. But once it comes to the most important things, like letting go of the thing that is literally disrupting your entire life, we think twice about it, or we question it, or we put it off until later on. When in reality, the only way we're going to move forward in any sort of healthy and productive way is by first forgiving. And so that is the most important and most crucial step. It's a step that you cannot skip in your healing process. Now, secondly, and this becomes much, much easier, is then actually starting to rewire or shift our actual belief system about ourselves. Once we can forgive ourselves and others and make that a habit and it becomes a part of who we are, then we can easily start to shift our own belief system. We become so aware of our thoughts on a day-to-day basis, and we let go of certain thoughts and we choose other thoughts. Like most of the time, we believe we're not controlling our thoughts or we have no control of our emotions, and we believe we're controlled by them only because we have been so used to the habit of thinking in certain ways, so used to the habit of feeling in certain ways, that we believe that's the only way. But in reality, it's just become the easiest way. Just like any other habit, our thinking process in our brain is a habitual thing. But when we make the mindset shift, and your mind is different than your brain, by the way. The mind and the brain are two different things. The brain is the processing center. The mind is the spiritual essence. That's the one that's connected to the divine, that's connected to God, that's connected to, the creator of life. And so when you shift your mindset and you choose thoughts, like right now you're hearing this, it's not your brain is processing it, but you're able to perceive it because of your mind, because of that higher thing, that higher faculty of self. And so even right now, as you're hearing this, you're now having higher thoughts. That's not the brain. The brain is a processor. What is having the thought or the download is the mind. And so you can literally choose different thoughts regardless of circumstance. You have just been trained to think a certain way when certain things happen, to tell a certain story when certain things happen. Therefore, when that thing happens, you believe, oh man, that means I'm not good enough. But in reality, that's just a situation or circumstance or a condition. And the conditions of your life are only dictated by what you believe about them and what you say about them. And they become more and more of that. So if you can start to shift, and when you do start to shift that story that you tell about yourself, that I am worthy, I am loved, I am deserving of love, literally telling yourself a new story. Like, that's when they talk about the inner child, it's literally talking to that child and feeding them the love and the validation that they always deserved. Once you start to do that for yourself, in yourself, you will start to see that shift gradually happening. And this ain't gonna take 50 years unless you do a little bit and then you wait another 50 years and do it again. That's when it would take 50 years. But this is something that will become a part of your nature as any other habit once you make the decision, the absolute decision that my healing matters more than anything else. Not getting in another toxic relationship has nothing to do with, defending yourself or looking for the signs of toxic people. Like, yes, there's discernment in it. Yes, discernment matters and being able to gauge energy. But when you start to become a different person, you will attract less and less of those type of people. As a matter of fact, you will start to have more respect for yourself, that even if you did meet that person, you would automatically say no, as opposed to having the system overrode by your old belief systems that say, okay, get into this relationship. Oh, this person is kind of shady or whatever. Like, that's a perfect person for me because I deserve a shady person. Like, as you change your belief system about yourself, you're going to start attracting less of those people. And you're going to make decisions where you will never even find yourself stepping into that relationship. It's the difference between, like, if you didn't, let's say there was a hole in the road and you walk every day and you just fall in the hole. And one day you say, you know what? I'm going to choose to walk around that hole. The moment you make a decision to walk around that hole, maybe you walk around a little bit and then you jump in because you were used to it. You walk around a little bit and jump in again. I don't know why you would, but that's how we are with our habits. Because we're so in love with the old belief and the old story until we're not. But one day, you're going to walk up to the hole and walk around the hole and keep it stepping. That's what will happen within your life and within the world of relationships that you have within your life. You're going to start to have healthy and healthier relationships, whether it's a relationship you're in now or one that you're going to be in. Once you start doing that inner work, everything around you starts to gravitate towards that. But it comes from commitment. It's not half-assed. It's not half-stepped. You can't do it just a little bit and expect a whole lot. You got to throw your whole self into it. This is work. You work for a degree. You work for a job. You work for whatever system that you work for more than you work for yourself. Now it's time to shift that. It's time to switch that and put that same amount of energy, attention, focus, and clarity into yourself. That same intention and intensity into your own development, and everything else in your life will thrive because of it. Now, for anybody who's currently in this process within their life and you need the guidance, make sure to book a one-on-one consultation with me by clicking on the link in the description below. Pick a time, pick a date that works for both of us, and let's get to it. I appreciate you guys for watching this. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I love you. Appreciate you. Peace.